I think it was really fascinating to hear that there was such a consensus around the table of everybody's view in the same sort of space, and so many common problems that we all share. And regarding to the kind of manual nature, there were some particular themes that stood out for me in the discussion, some which we'd anticipated, and it was great to hear that they were reinforcing our views, and some were sort of kind of new inputs for us. I think the things that stood out particularly for me in that piece was, firstly, the need to embrace automation. Unsurprisingly, there's just too much stuff to collect manually. The overhead of doing that's really hard. So in many ways, the historical manual and somewhat subjective assessment methods just don't work for us. We work in a very dynamic environment. We've got to get slicker about this and building a better way of automating this stuff, and to introduce into that some intelligent capabilities. We have to get better around speed and accuracy, and as a consequence of that, increase our confidence of the risk of making decisions. And automation clearly can help streamline so much of that for us, both in terms of creating a pull through of the data, but arriving at something in a much more quick and reliable way. I think the second piece that stood out for me around that was related to the need to implement control monitoring tools. And so many organizations, and certainly in the discussion around the table, we talked about lots of tools that allow us to run our cybersecurity controls. But actually there was an absence around the governance wrapper for that to actually help us understand that despite deploying these tools, do we really have a sense as to how effective they are, and how do we monitor our control effectiveness and to a degree their efficiency? And we need to equip risk managers really in being able to have the capability to not just do point in time assessments, but to build a much more significant ongoing continuous monitoring capability for their own validation about where we stand, but also to be able to work with stakeholders as well, and giving an ongoing view about, are the controls operating as designed? Do we have control gaps? And what are we missing, right? So if you have a better understanding of the risk management portfolio and the things that we should be trying to protect against, where are those blind spots that we're otherwise missing? And then I think the third piece that stood out was around standardization, and in particular around measurement. And so how do we get better and speak more consistently around the way we're measuring it, in a way that when we are speaking to stakeholders, they have a more consistent and go-to understanding really of what we're trying to describe. So often in any one organization, the table and conversation around the table talking about, often we have problems within any single organization about measuring controls in a consistent way, and that problem is even further compounded when we're talking about third parties. We're not trying to run the third party, but we are trying to exert a level of oversight about their ability to both meet and deliver against the obligations they've signed up to as part of our contract with them. And the benefit of risk managers being able to work together to establish a much more sort of consistent and unified approach to control measurement would be a huge win for everybody. And in some ways, an ability to describe more clearly objectives and metrics. And there is no industry reference standard for this typically out there for controls. Assuring the way we measure our control is standardized through an organization and across third parties would be a massive win for us, and certainly take our industry as a step change forward.